you. Drew DeArmond, Drew D, 977 ESPN in the mornings, host of Talkin' Ball, Huntsville, Alabama, 7 to 9. He's got the morning drive, TiderInsider.com. He is as connected as anybody inside the Alabama program in the SEC, also 977ESPN.com. Drew, thank you so much for taking some time. I know that you may not have even slept last night. How are you?
Well, I managed to get 2.5 to 3 hours, Jake, which I think was a victory. I know I was texting with you yesterday. I appreciate you taking the time to, have me on the show. I'll just say this. I had to plug the phone up again. So I apologize for that, for the delay. But needless to say, I haven't had to cover a coaching search at Alabama football-wise since I got in the business 10 years ago. And now I remember when I was outside the business and how much I hated a football coaching search, and I still do. But it is what it is.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you guys tipped off before you? I mean, yesterday, we took a break, and I got a text that said, check Twitter now. And Beaver did, my producer, and then, of course, it just hit us right on the air, and it was extremely weird and wow. You knew it was coming at some point, but just kind of to have to talk about it in real time, it was very, very odd. Just very nostalgic. Did you guys know about this, or were you guys surprised?
Here's what I was told yesterday. I got a text about 2 o'clock from one of my best sources. He told me an assistant coach was leaving to go to Georgia had I heard about it. And I said no. And I said, but I can't believe that would happen. I figure he was up for a promotion. He'd been heavily involved in recruiting. And I just was like, that wouldn't be good at all. And then, I as we were talking, Bo Davis went to LSU. And then I told the source, I said, I'm not surprised he didn't hire Bo. And he said, well, he tried. But, they're using his age against him. They're wondering if he's going to retire in 1 or 2 years. And Saban was having trouble retaining assistants, hiring who he wanted because of his age. NIL, the transfer portal, he had adapted to that, but it's still an ongoing situation. As you know, it's open-ended. We've talked to you about that on our show with what Ole Miss and Mississippi State are doing, especially the Rebels. So there's just absolutely no guardrails on it. And I think, as Coach Saban told Reese Davis, Chris Lowe today, it's a lot harder to do now when he's 72 than it was when he was 62. And I think I was told yesterday around 2 o'clock he was growing frustrated with not being able to fill out his staff. He was frustrated with how recruiting ended, and I know that sounds absurd because they finished number 2, but he wasn't happy that they only had 8 scholarship offensive linemen for spring, that McLaughlin transferred, and that, they didn't sign some offensive tackles that he would have liked to have signed out of the high school ranks. I just think overall just being tired, and it's such a hard job to stay so fully involved, not take a CEO role, and run the organization the way he wants to. And I just think he felt like, it wasn't. And I think I'll just say this on your show: the powers that be, the board of trustees, the athletic director, they were on alert. They knew this could happen. They weren't 100% sure it would, but I think he just grew tired. You probably read what was said today that he was still working 30 minutes before he decided to retire. He interviewed a wide receivers coach candidate and then just said, I'm done. I'm retiring. And I'll just tell you, I knew about the 4 o'clock meeting, but they have it every year. The first thing we were told is that it was just going to be to set the agenda, the off-season program in spring, just like they do every year under him, and that he wasn't going to retire. Then he walked into the room and told the team he was retiring. The coaches and the players had no idea. So to say it was a little surprising yesterday, Jake, I would say yes.
Drew DeArmond on your radio talking Nick Saban, Alabama, out at Alabama. And, of course, now a coaching search is underway. We'll get to that in just a bit. So, Drew, I don't even know how you quantify. You look at the numbers for Nick Saban. You look at the national championships, the SEC titles, just the way that he transformed this league, the way he transformed the University of Alabama. And look, that was hard to do it to begin with all the history and everything that goes with the Crimson Tide. But just in a couple minutes before we talk coaching search, just to kind of put your arms around what he has meant to Tuscaloosa and the university.
Well, I'll equate it like this. When I was a kid, Jake, I was a kid of the 80s and the 90s. Most people thought Notre Dame was the most tradition-rich program in college football history. They won a national championship when I was in middle school in 1988. They nearly won it again in 93 when I was about to graduate high school. Since that time, Notre Dame's only come close twice, and Alabama smashed them both times. And when you look at what Nick Saban has done with 4 Heisman Trophy winners, 6 national championships, and he could have won 10 very easily, Jake, in 17 years, what he's done is he has established Alabama football as the greatest program historically in history, and it's not close. I mean, Georgia's had a great run lately. Clemson had moments in the sun. But I'm just talking about when you stack the history together from the 1920s Rose Bowls all the way to now, it's like I told somebody yesterday, he took a sledgehammer and smashed Notre Dame. Okay? Notre Dame, it's creeping up to 40 years since they've won a national championship. He won 6 at Alabama and almost won 10. To me, what he did historically is he had the greatest run in history for a 17-year period. And because of what he did, when you stack it with Coach Bryant, when you stack it with Gene Stallings, Coach Wade, Coach Thomas, Alabama football is the greatest program in history, and I don't think it's close because I just think when you look at the national championships they've won and then they've almost won, nobody compares to what Alabama has done historically now, and a lot of that's because of Nick Saban and all these coaches making, $11, $12 million a year, $10 million a year. Your lowest paid coach in the SEC making $3 to $4 million. You can all thank Nick Saban, and you can also thank him for the SEC network because, as you said, he revolutionized the game.
I don't think anybody's going to disagree with anything that you just said. Drew DeArmond talking Nick Saban, Thursday edition of the program. All right, so Dan Lanning has taken his name out of the hat. And, of course, you hear Mike Norvell today. You hear Lane Kiffin. You hear Kalen DeBoer, Washington, Steve Sarkisian. Any guesses on a short list? Is that the short list? Is there somebody we're not thinking of? You look at Greg Byrne. He said 72-hour window. And I'm paraphrasing, we're going to button this thing up or feel like they'll have it buttoned up. I saw John Talty put that out there on X. Your thoughts on who it might be?
Well, I'll just say this. I had a list of my own. I was hearing a lot of vibes, strong ones with Dan Lanning yesterday, and I thought strongly it might be him. It turned out it was not. And you're never right in this deal all the time, of course. It's almost like chasing ghosts. But I'll just give you a list of of 4 guys, and I don't think it'll get off of that list. I think, Dan Lanning was on that list. He's now out. You just said that, Jake. But I think the other 3 on that list, D'Amico Ryans, even though the timeline doesn't really fit, Steve Sarkisian, and Kalen DeBoer. I don't think it comes off of those. I don't think it's going to be Mike Norvell, no disrespect. I think he's done a great job at Florida State. Because I think if it was Mike Norvell, it would already be done because FSU, his buyout is $4 million. You know the turmoil they're having with the ACC. I think he would jump at the chance to come to Alabama. But Steve Sarkisian, he's in talks to get an extension with Texas. That could get a little sticky. His wife loves Austin, so there's no guarantees there. But I really think when you look at it, D'Amico is a Bama guy. I know he's just in his first year as an NFL head coach. And, again, the timelines are really iffy because of the playoffs and the portal being open. But I really think, based on what I've heard, that those were the 4 guys that I believe were strongly under consideration. Lanning never got offered the job. So, to me, it's going to come from one of those 3 with Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian, and D'Amico Ryans. And I think Alabama will have a head coach by tomorrow.
And so if what you're saying is the gospel, which typically you're on the money when it comes to Alabama and the SEC, Ole Miss fans should be ecstatic. It's not likely Lane Kiffin.
I don't think so. I very seriously doubt it's Lane Kiffin. I've never thought it would be. I'll just say this. Lane's done a great job at Ole Miss. There's no question about that. He's had 2 10-plus win seasons, a school record 11 wins this year. But I'll also say his tenure at Alabama didn't end well with Nick Saban. And Nick Saban is still going to be around the building. He's still going to have his office. He's still going to be involved, definitely, with keeping this roster together. I think that Nick Saban has a better relationship with Sark than he does Kiffin. I know Kiffin respects him. Kiffin always pays homage to him. But I'll just say this. During a 17-year run, Lane Kiffin is the only assistant coach that didn't finish a season.
Wow, that is
not
strong.
Not all of that was because he had taken another job at FAU, okay? And then all I'll say is when he removed Lane Kiffin after the Washington win in 2016, who took over as OC?
Yeah, it was Sark.
Steve Sarkisian. So I just don't think – I know Lane impressed some people when he was in Tuscaloosa, but I don't think he impressed enough people. And I'll just say this, too. Lane Kiffin would jump at the chance to go to Tuscaloosa. That's why he didn't go to Auburn last year, in my opinion. But I just don't think he's going to get this job. I think he wants the job. I think if he wanted it, it would have already been done. But I just don't think he's going to be the Alabama coach. I've never thought he was going to. People that I trust don't think so. And I just think overall, when it comes down to it, the three guys I mentioned, Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian, D'Amico Ryans, I think it's going to come from those three now that Dan Lanning is officially out.
Really, really good stuff. Drew DeArmond on your radio. Drew D, 977 ESPN, TiderInsider.com, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 977ESPN.com. Drew, always appreciate your time. Good stuff as always. Look, I appreciate you on a tight window. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for hanging with me, man. Appreciate